Go. Yes?
Can you hear? Yes.
I can go?
We can hear you now.
Good morning, everybody joining us from the UK. A warm welcome here from the Philippines. Apologies for the slight delay. I think it's 5:35. And thank you for joining our webinar. My name is Chris Nelson. I'm the Executive Chairman of the British Chamber. And today the webinar will be focusing on exploring the pharmaceutical sector in the Philippines. We have three speakers for you. The first will be actually joining us from the FDA, which is Richard Binos. Then after Richard, we will have from the Pharmaceutical and Healthcare Association, Ted Padilla. And then we will have, after Ted, Gigi Nievales, who is also from GlaxoSmithKline. What I'd like to say to you is that if you have any questions, please type your queries in the question box. They will be answered at the end of the presentation. Unfortunately, the FDA representative cannot remain, but obviously both Gigi and Ted will try their best to answer those questions. All the presentations and the recording of this webinar will be sent to the registrants. Once again, a warm welcome and thank you for joining from the UK. And I'd now kindly like to hand over to the FDA, Mr. Richard Binos, who will take you through his presentation. Thank you.
And 30. So, kumakain na 30. Kasi po hindi naman ito. Ano ba sa mga hello? Hindi pa kasi ako na-21. Eh, masasayap sa mga market. Hindi, 21. Hello? 21. Okay, CCRR na tayo. Kasi dito is CCRR is dito. Hindi ko naman malapit ako. Yun lang sila na Hello? Hello? Naka-online na kami.
Yeah, we're here.
Kami na ba? Oo, meron ng ano.
Hello, good afternoon.
They can hear.
Okay, I'm actually not hearing anyone, but I'll start with my presentation. So, welcome to the Philippines. I'm presenting a short overview of the Center for Drug Regulation and Research under the Food and Drug Administration. We are responsible for regulating drug products and drug establishments here in the country. Okay, just an outline of my presentation, just a listing of the legal basis for our mandate for regulation, uh, the Food and Drug Administration, who we are, the Center for Drug Regulation and Research, our office or our center, the regulatory framework that we implement, and the strategies and the commitments and the way forward. Okay, just rundown of the legal basis. No, so we have several policies mandating us or empowering us to regulate drug products from our Public Act 3720, 9711, 9502, Consumer Act 7394, and the Pharmacy Law 5921. The Generics Act 6675, which is I think unique in the ASEAN region. We were the first to implement the requirement of generic naming, and the Responsible Parenthood and Reproductive Health Act, or RA 10354. The Food and Drug Administration, we're an office under the Department of Health or the Ministry of Health here in the Philippines, created in 1963. Okay, so we are more than 50 years. Our mandate is to ensure the safety, efficacy, and quality of health products. When we say health products, it can be food, drugs, cosmetics, devices, biologicals, vaccines, in vitro diagnostic reagents, etc., etc. Our mission is to ensure the safety, efficacy, purity, and quality of products we regulate through effective implementation of the national regulatory framework. Our mission is to be an internationally recognized center of regulatory excellence in safeguarding the health of the Filipino people. Our quality policy is to ensure the safety, efficacy, quality of health products consistent with our mandate. Toward this end, we commit to establish science-based standards as basis for regulatory policies to continually improve and maintain our competencies in relation to our regulatory function and to deliver quality public service with integrity. This is our organizational chart. We have 4 centers divided according to product jurisdiction. So Center for Food, Center for Device, Center for Cosmetics, and the Center for Drug, where I am from. Okay. This is our field regulatory operations, where everything related to drug establishment licensing, including inspection, is under. And this is our common services laboratory, where all analysis for laboratory, including post-market testing, is being conducted. Okay, so who we are, who is the Center for Drug Regulation and Research? The Center for Drug was established in 2013. Now, we were created in 1963, but were only recently reorganized last 2013 into the 4 centers according to product jurisdiction. The center's mandate is to ensure safety, efficacy, and quality of drug products. So when we say drug products, it is classified according to new chemical entities, that's new drug products. Generic products, biotechnological products, including vaccines and biosimilars. Traditionally used herbal products, household remedies, over-the-counter products, herbal medicines, medical gases, and veterinary drug products. So these all types of products are under the Center for Drug. We are also mandated to regulate the manufacture, importation, exportation, distribution, sale, offer for sale, transfer, promotion of drug products. So basically, anything related or any activities related to drug products, it is under the jurisdiction of our center. As long as you are an establishment engaging in any of the above-mentioned activities, you have to secure a license or a permit from the Center for Drug. This is our organizational chart from the center. Okay. We have our product research and the licensing and research licensing and registration division, we have two divisions, no? So under the product research and standards development division, I come from the standards development and advocacy section. Okay, my OIC is here with me, Ms. Lanet Lee Kerubin, and our OIC is currently under on an ASEAN meeting. This is currently our manpower complement. We have 84 personnel under the Center for Drug, excluding the inspectorate. So remember from the organizational chart, the inspectorate is under the field regulatory operations. Okay, so the Center for Drug Regulation and Research has 84 personnel. And this is our citizens charter. So when we receive applications for licensing, for registration, this is our committed timelines in processing your applications. So initial application would mean to initial application for registration of a drug product, a maximum of 254 calendar days. That's the maximum. Okay, and renewal application, etc., etc. I think the slides will be provided to you for your reference. The regulatory framework. We have four main elements in the regulatory framework. Number one would be licensing and inspection of establishments, pre-marketing assessment, post-marketing surveillance, communication, coordination, and collaboration. Under the first framework, all establishments must comply with the requirements of good practices. Okay, so when you are a manufacturer, of course, you would comply with GMP. So when we say GMP, that's fixed GMP in the Philippines. When we talk about good distribution practice and good storage practices, we would refer to the WHO guidelines. Good laboratory practice, good clinical practice, and good tissue practice are all also being implemented or required by FDA. For pre-marketing assessment, this would refer to registration. Prior to the marketing of products, for any conduct of clinical trials in the country, it must comply with the standards of good clinical practice. So when we say good clinical practice, that would be ICH GCP. When it comes to proof of safety, efficacy, and quality for innovative or drugs or new chemical entities, full quality, safety, and efficacy documents compliant with the ASEAN requirements. So as a member of the ASEAN member states, or as an ASEAN member state, we implement the ASEAN Common Technical Dossier or Common Technical Requirements. However, we also exercise flexibility in the ICH CTD format. So if your documents for registration are under the ICH CTD format, we will accept it. For generic drug products, full quality plus proof of interchangeability, meaning bioequivalence or biowaiver, whichever is applicable. Also included in the registration process would be sample submission and evaluation, the labeling review and imposition of post-marketing commitments where applicable. So as mentioned, labeling review, you would have, if you want to market here in the country, you would have to comply with the generic labeling requirements, which in summary would require that you make the generic products the most prominent element in your labeling material. For post-marketing surveillance, there are, I think, 7 elements here. Of course, number 1 would be pharmacovigilance. Number 2 would be monitoring, collecting, sampling, and testing of drugs. Number 3 would be audits and inspection of manufacturers, distributors, and retail outlets. We also conduct inspection of foreign manufacturers. However, if your manufacturer has been inspected by a PICS member state, then the requirement would be just the PICS GMP certificate, no longer full inspection. We also do advertisements and claims monitoring, consumer reporting of ADR, complaints processing. When necessary, we implement or require product recall, labeling revision, or restriction on use, meaning we change the dispensing category. And we also implement other administrative sanctions where necessary. For communication, coordination, and collaboration, we do have several international collaborations. Number 1 would be in Korea, USPQM. We are also under a recipient of the European Union contract. So we've been receiving several technical assistance. Okay, we also have other tie-ups with drug regulatory authorities on trainings, GMP audits, etc. We do align with other government agencies here in the country. Okay, so I will not mention all of them. Okay, then we do partner with professional associations. Okay, for CDRR strategies, okay, we have 9 strategies to implement. No? We work on improving the efficiency, clarity, and transparency of the work processes. We review and update our policies. We draft new policies when needed. We advocate a robust and flexible and risk-based regulatory system, enhance both pre-market and post-market, and develop a coordinated approach with different regulatory offices. We do continuous retraining and retooling, closer collaboration with other DRAs, and regular communication with stakeholders such as this one. Okay. Our commitments and the way forward, we commit to update our existing regulations to align with international standards and best practices. We act on all incoming requests within the committed turnaround time as shown earlier. We intensify our PMS, and we conduct trainings for our industry stakeholders. Way forward would be international and local collaboration, and number 2 would be work processing. Okay, so I think that ends my presentation. I can provide you other materials through the Chamber of Commerce.
Will be answering questions. We'll answer your questions.
Yes. Okay. There's one question here. What is FDA's views on the PIC scheme? To update, no, the Philippines is applying for PIC certification. No, as a standard for GMP, we recognize PICs as the gold standard for GMP. So as mentioned earlier, if your manufacturer has been inspected by a PICS member state, no, we do not need to actually come and visit your manufacturer, but we will honor the PICS certificate issued by that PICS member state. Question, are there any Western or Japanese pharmaceutical companies like GSK, Pfizer, or Otsuka Astellas doing manufacturing in the Philippines? Currently, I think all mentioned establishments are importing. They are classified as importer in the country, not as full manufacturers. They're not manufacturing here in the country. How long does it take to register a CPR in the Philippines? No? So as shown earlier in my slide, no, the committed turnaround time is 254 calendar days. Regarding product registrations, renewals amendment, the FDA is not able to deliver in the duration of the activity in completing the applications of establishments. There are backlogs that go back over 2 years on companies plan in such environment. No, as mentioned, no, we are having backlogs because we only recently reorganized in 2013. So since reorganization, we updated our policies And as a result, several applications were backlogged. No? We are still in the process of our improving the systems, making the system more manageable for applicants. For example, in 2014, we started implementing the online submission. No? So previously, you would have to submit all hard copies of documents. No? We are going under several regulatory reforms, and I can assure you that within the within the end of our reform period, we'll have more. We'll be able to accommodate more of the requests or applications for registration.
Okay, so for now, those are the only questions FDA can answer. Again, please do email your additional questions to uksme@britcham.org.ph and we'll let FDA answer your additional questions. I'm transferring the presenter to Gigi.
Hello. Okay. Hi, good evening. I'm Ted Padilla. I'm the Executive Director of the Pharmaceutical and Healthcare Association of the Philippines. And I'm being assisted by Gigi Nievales, who is the Regulatory Affairs Officer for GlaxoSmithKline. So we'd just like to go briefly through the pharmaceutical industry in the Philippines as we prepare this presentation. So I just want to go quickly on what PHAP is, our association, the contributions of the industry to the Philippines, which we did recently with a commissioned study by IMS. There's also an administrative order that the Department of Health recently issued on the adoption of the APEC Mexico City principles, and additional activities that the association has had since we started last year. ACPIA, which is the ASEAN Confederation of Pharmaceutical Industry Associations, and a campaign on non-communicable diseases. Just for the record, the Philippines is actually the first APEC economy that drafted what the FDA started itself back in 2013 and is now signed DOH administrative order on the Mexico City Declaration. So what is PHAP? The Pharmaceutical and Healthcare Association was started post-World War II. It had different names back then. The first name, I believe, was the Drug Association of the Philippines. And all players in the market were members. Today, we represent mostly research-based or innovators, pharmaceutical companies with many national and global pharmaceutical firms. At the moment, our membership is at 40. In 2003, we started a CSR foundation called PHAP Cares, and this has proven to be very effective in our pursuit of different advocacies. Our mission and vision, and I'll just go through this quickly because we will be giving these copies of this presentation to all of you, is just really pretty much to produce, enhance, and make accessible quality and life-saving medicines and medical devices, and to partner with government, professions, and NGOs in improving the overall healthcare situation in the Philippines. And we are committed to save and improve people's lives, promote patient access to medicines, and improve the delivery of healthcare in the country. We also were the first
organization to adopt an internationally recognized code of practice or code of ethics. We recognize our role in public health and definitely in the use of our products for curing, diagnosis, and in the treatment or prevention of disease. And all our member companies are committed, they pledge to abide by the PHAP Code of Practice, which is pretty much, it is aligned with many international standards as well, including that of the IFPMA and with the APEC, most recently with APEC. Just to go quickly, in terms of the code of practice of PHAP, for those companies that may catch the attention or who are considered to be possible violators, we have an ethics committee which is comprised of independent professionals, many of whom are former secretaries of health. If there is indeed an infraction determined, there is a possible fine. We do advise the FDA in some situations. We suspend the members from our association, again, depending on the gravity and the frequency of the offense. Now, I want to touch base on what we consider to be quite important, which is the study that we commissioned IMS to do for us, which is on the contributions of the industry in the Philippines. In 2014, we engaged IMS. We wanted to determine what the industry's contributions were to the country in terms of health, social, and economic. The results of this study were released back in August at the CORED Global Forum, which was held here in Manila at the Philippine International Convention Center. The key results that came out show that there are collective contributions that the industry members and the industry has provided, saving lives and empowering patients, contributing to economic growth, and partnering for better health. When we talk about the key findings, what we found is that Filipinos are living longer, healthier, and more productive lives due to the efforts of research medicines and vaccines, and by which many innovative medicines and vaccines were developed. The study, and you can see in the infographic on the side, there are 55, this is back in 2014 with data, 55 life-saving vaccines, 21 new medicines in 2014 alone, various patient access programs to give assistance to government, private sector, and patient organizations, a wide variety of affordable medicines, and a continuing education to promote health and well-being. Furthermore, we also took note that the pharmaceutical industry continues to contribute to the growth of the economy by fueling it through jobs and investing in local research and development. In terms of figures, we'll have to do the calculations later into dollars and pounds, but pound sterling just the same. The output of pharma companies in 2014 was estimated at 14 billion pesos. And the forecast will say that the market, 146 billion, and the forecast is supposed to reach about 164. So you just have to twist the figures around there. More than 60,000 jobs have been created based on the last available data, which unfortunately is a challenge to get when dealing with some of the government agencies here in the country. So these are things that you need to take note of when planning to invest. The industry has also invested more than 1 billion pesos in terms of local R&D. So these are clinical trials here in the country, mostly. As mentioned, we're third in Southeast Asia, I believe, after Thailand and Singapore, in terms of clinical trials, sponsored clinical trials, and we've contributed more than 20 billion pesos in taxes. Just as, again, the last available data was in 2012. In terms of other key findings, thankfully, PHAP and our members are considered to be strong and trustworthy partners in government. Patient groups and communities, healthcare professionals, and NGOs are comfortable dealing with us. This was not always the case. There was a period where the industry was regarded as a was definitely regarded with suspicion. But thankfully, we've moved past that, and the Department of Health has actually called on us to be partners in many of these projects. This is where we continue to demonstrate strong corporate citizenship. We're the only industry organization, as mentioned, that has established its own CSR arm, PHAP Cares Foundation. We've donated almost 1 billion pesos worth of medicine since its founding. And again, as mentioned earlier, fully internationally recognized code of practice. Now, we've also identified key areas for collaboration with the government moving forward, and this is what the study helped us put together. One is that the areas of collaboration on the right side, we recognize that the challenges are not yet over. There's work to be done, and therefore we aim to continue our collaborations and partnerships with important stakeholders in health. Now, this chart talks about the utilization of pharmaceutical products, originators versus generics. As many of you may know, that the generics market in the Philippines is quite robust. In fact, it has overtaken that of the originators in time due to several factors, legislation being one, the requirement by government hospitals to actually prefer to take proceedings over generics. For now, generics accounts for about 65% of the total pharmaceutical market. Its annual growth rate since 2010 has been estimated at 6%. Between 80 to 90% of essential medicines, as defined by the WHO, are already off patent. Thereby, consumers in the country have been given more affordable options. The originators account for only 35% of the pharmaceutical market in the country, and that is seen to continue. That trend seems to have held steady for the last 2 years, 65-35%. This is IMS data. The value of medicines also, in terms of the study, as you can see, total sales of value have risen up to 146 billion. The 5-year growth rate forecast is seen at 5% for the next 4.7 in this year and 5% in 2017 and 2018. The top pharmaceutical companies in the Philippines by revenue. This is from company reports, SEC. The top company is a local company, United Laboratories or Unilab, followed by Pfizer, Abbott, GSK, and then down the line to Boehringer, Sanofi, Novartis, Roche, MSD, Bayer, and the last in that list is Pascual Laboratories, which is a Philippine company. So between Unilab and Pascual, everybody else in the chart is an multinational innovator. But the difference between Unilab and Pfizer is more than 100. So they have now in terms of the average growth, as you can see on the very right column, 8.2% down to well, this is the latest figures. There's a 0.9. But interestingly, we see that there are other companies that have registered spectacular growth in their niche. So we will, again, as pointed out, we will be sharing this information with you later on. Now, in terms of, we talked about NCDs or non-communicable diseases, the country profile in the Philippines. As you can see in the chart, mortality, the largest in the pie chart are cardiovascular diseases at 33%. Again, and then others like cancers, chronic respiratory diseases, diabetes, and others. So because we were able to launch over 76 molecules or combinations over the last 3 years, we've managed to help reduce the mortality from the top NCDs in the country, particularly with cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, and respiratory diseases, which in 2014 accounted for 53% mortality. Now, by therapeutic area in the pie chart, metabolic, alimentary, and cardiovascular medicines represent almost 40% of the pharmaceutical sales in the country. Of course, the utilization rate is quite high. There are over, for example, there are over 160 molecules available in the Philippines today to combat cardiovascular conditions. Similarly, healthcare professionals can choose over 100 molecules for the treatment of cancer. In terms of the launch of medicines for non-communicable diseases, the figures will show that over the last 3 years, a total of 76 new molecules or combinations of such for the country's top 4 NCDs were introduced. In cancer alone, 5 new molecules or combination products were launched in 2014. Now, this looks like a very busy slide, so I'll just go to the top. It says here, sustaining, among the recommendations that our study with IMS gave, which we've shared with the government, is that we must continue sustaining collaboration to preserve the gains of universal health care. This is one message that we were fortunate enough to give Secretary of Health Janet Garin directly, and we were also assisted ably by members of the diplomatic corps, such as the ambassador of the UK, the ambassador of the US, the EU ambassador, as well as Swiss ambassadors, their chargés, commercial attachés, together with the Board of Trustees of PHAP. We were able to sit down and work out a number of these recommendations that we were able to engage them with. So sustaining collaboration to preserve the gains of universal health care, we realized that we have to preserve these gains and to fully realize the ambition of achieving this. So the efforts will include support for ongoing government programs, as well as providing specific suggestions on how to further the reform. Also, a more active role for the private sector in strengthening government and non-government institutions. The private sector is very much prepared to provide talent and resources in this regard. The next is second recommendation is to continue supporting patients and their families to participate in shaping the healthcare agenda of the country. So patients and caregivers are very much involved in the ongoing dialogue. So by doing this, patient organizations continue to be helped to get better organized and therefore gain stronger participation. This means increased access for patient representatives to legislators and decision makers, as well as an increased visibility of how choices are made in the public and private sectors on the pursuit of improved productivity and the quality of life. And last, third and last recommendation that we had made in the study was to reinforce healthcare delivery at the grassroots. So working together with the Department of Health, the local government units, and other stakeholders and members of the pharma industry in order to improve healthcare delivery at the grassroots. This is very important because in the Philippines, the system of health is devolved. The Department of Health is responsible for a good number of government institutions, but with government hospitals and care centers. But at the level of the local governments, such as the councils or towns and smaller cities, urban, rural areas, it's the local governments that take charge of healthcare policy. So at the grassroots level, it's very important to reinforce the importance of primary care and other healthcare ideas. So there are challenges involved in making sure that the archipelagic nature of we also have logistics problems because the country is comprised of several islands, and so there are competing priorities at the community level. So the IMS study, as mentioned, you can find it in our website, which is there, the full IMS study, which includes information on the industry dynamics, growth prospects, innovators versus generics, as mentioned earlier, key players, threats, and key risks. All of these are available and definitely downloadable. I'll go very quickly on the Department of Health administrative order that we mentioned earlier. So again, the attachment, I won't touch that. You can just read it for yourself. But it's pretty much that this was signed last December 21st and it was released on the 28th. As mentioned, we're the first economy to put the Mexico City and Kuala Lumpur principles, which delve into the engagement of medical devices, the medical device sector with healthcare professionals. Patients, as a result of this, patients are assured of the improve transparency, compliance, and ethics with respect to interactions with healthcare professionals and other stakeholders in what has been now called the Prescription Pharmaceutical Products, or PPP, not private-public partnership, and medical device industries, or MD. Okay. So in conclusion, I want to just emphasize on behalf of the industry that we in the past we've often been regarded with wariness, even suspicion, but the immense contributions that the industry has provided the country in the last, particularly in the last decade, after when things started to improve in terms of our partnership, the continued dedication to improve along with global standards of ethics, compliance, and transparency have given us the impetus to be proven that we are an indispensable partner to a nation building. And then just as a bit of an advertisement for what we've been doing, we've also been involved with collaborations. PHAP initiated the formation of the ASEAN Confederation of Pharmaceutical Industry Associations. This is a group that consists of PHAP and our sister organizations in Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand. So we met last year in Manila on the sidelines of the APEC conference, and then again in Tokyo in February. So what we're doing here is that we're organized as a forum among research-based pharma industry associations, and in terms of sharing of best practices and other common policy advocacies. We've also been pushing for a campaign on NCDs, and I will not go into too much detail, but the specific objectives of this campaign are to, as we've seen in the previous slides, reduce the premature mortality and morbidity, and to address and mitigate the risk factors for NCDs by creating health-promoting environments and providing access to medicines, services, and technologies. And lastly, to ensure sustainability of the government, of the Department of Health's NCD prevention and control program. We also released a paper on what we call UHC 2.0, Universal Healthcare 2.0, whose key recommendations are to strengthen primary care and outpatient systems, involve the local government units. As mentioned, they are a very key factor in determining health delivery outcomes at the local level. That we also we cannot overemphasize that reform is a collective effort. Both public and private sectors need to be involved, and that we continue to focus on the patient and their power of choice. In terms of opportunities and threats, the opportunities, as universal healthcare continues to gain momentum. The Aquino administration has pursued it with vigor, and we've seen increased investments in health through the General Appropriations Act, as well as the so-called sin taxes, the additional taxes on cigarettes and liquor, translating to improved population coverage, particularly for the insurance agency, the PhilHealth. At the same time, this poses a challenge to constantly improve service and cost coverage. Now, the SDG number 3 aims to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. This creates an opportunity to align our initiatives toward addressing many different persistent and emerging health issues. And we've engaged many stakeholders to ensure that our voice will continue to be heard, especially when it comes to issues such as policy, regulatory, that may affect the industry. Again, the threats and key risks are populist approaches to providing access. We need to continue to level the playing field, and that's where the Department of Health Administrative Order on Mexico City Kuala Lumpur principles comes in. And we also need to make sure that infrastructure, capacity, and implementation are respected. So that's it. Thank you for your time this morning or this evening. And if you have any questions, we'll do our best to answer them. If you, as I mentioned, my companion here, my colleague Gigi Nievales, is here with me because you may have some queries on the regulatory environment. Initially, we were under the impression that there would not be a representative from the Food and Drug Administration, but seeing as there was one, we might be able to answer some of your questions moving forward.
Was it? Sorry.
Sure.
Okay. What are the questions? Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. We have a number of questions. So I'll try and take it from the point. I believe the FDA answered some. I guess we'll... No, I can't see them. Okay. Okay. So I guess we'll start off with the ones which don't make a reference to Richard, as he's already left. So the first question is, are there any foreign ownership restrictions in the pharmaceutical manufacturing industry? And I guess linked to that, are there any foreign pharmaceutical companies doing any manufacturing in the Philippines? Gigi, would you like to answer that, as you are from GSK?
Yes, hi everyone. As mentioned by Ted earlier, I'm not here to represent FDA. On the other hand, I'm representing the industry. And there are no restrictions on foreign companies wanting to do manufacturing business in the Philippines. In fact, GSK is one, or probably we're the only foreign company left here in the Philippines with a manufacturing plant, although ours is producing more the OTCs, the over-the-counter preparations, and some consumer products. But yes, it's possible to set up a manufacturing business in the Philippines.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nicole Robert Lim, and also Mark Lamb, I think. Okay, that's just what is the email address again? I think we could supply that. Sure. Any local companies manufacturing non-generic drugs like anti-cancer or antibiotic drugs? There seems to be a number of gaps between the pricing, between the policy issues and, no, that's a different one. Sorry, so that's Mark Lamb. Any local companies manufacturing non-generic drugs or like anti-cancer or antibiotic drugs? Can any of you answer that?
Thank you. At the moment, there are very limited limited number of companies that are producing anti-cancer drugs. In terms of local companies, I don't think they have even licensed to many, if at all. We know that there are some companies that have that are producing formulations or medications that may work alongside these for in the treatment of patients, human or so, but it isn't exactly widespread. So generally, the treatment for cancer does still come from the innovator companies.
Okay. Can we go back? There seems to be a number of gaps between policy issues and compliance. There seems to be grey areas and a lack of stakeholders about how is the FDA addressing this. Well, obviously, unfortunately, we don't have the FDA here, so that question will be forwarded to them and hopefully we'll get an answer from them. So thank you, Hira Butrani. With regard to pharmaceuticals, what therapeutical classes are undersupplied in the Philippines? That's from Nicole Robert Lim. Anybody like to have a go at that or not?
I think we can get back to you on that one. We don't have the answers right now on that one.
Okay.
But we'll get back to you.
All right. I'm moving on here. Are counterfeits an issue in the Philippines? What do we know about the quality of generics which are available in the Philippines? That's from Grace Hizon.
Hi, Grace. Thank you. Well, the counterfeit issue is a problem, just as it is a problem in many of our neighboring countries. The challenge here, the added challenge in this country is that we have, we are an island nation. We have many porous borders. So the FDA itself has a lot on its hands when it comes to the regulation. However, we can safely say that any drug that comes in for registration, for testing by the FDA has gone through a vigorous process of testing. Now, with respect to, sorry, what is the other, what do we know about the quality?
Okay. Generics.
Yes, well, it's interesting that this is one country that has actually had a very long, I would say, extensive experience with opening up the generics industry in here. And as we pointed out in our study, that the market for generics has actually gotten very high. Now, of course, as in anything, there will be good ones, there will be probably questionable ones, but rest assured that there are enough, I think I would say that there are safeguards in place to ensure that the quality of the generics is tested properly. As for as we've always said, that there is choice in the market for patients and consumers, and since most of the medicines available are already, most of them are off patent, so the challenge really is now just to make sure that that the products that come in are registered properly and tested as well by the authorities, by the regulators.
Okay. So the next one is, are there any plans to implement an integrated system or database of patents in the Philippines? Nicole Robert Lim. That sounds like an FDA question.
Yes, I think, well, if you by integrated system, are you referring to like a central database or
Yes.
something like that? I believe that should that might be a question that should be directed maybe at the Intellectual Property Office. I know that there have been attempts to loop the registration of medicines and with the clearances coming from the patent authorities. We just don't know where that's going at the moment.
Okay. Aside from Unilab and Pascal, who are the major Philippine pharma players? Nicole Robert Lim.
Unilab, Pascual, trying to think. I think well, we have Hizon in our list of members, but I'm not certain as to the size. It's just that I think all of us, at one point in time have used products made by either of these two manufacturers from the time from childhood up to the present in one form or another. So definitely market dominance is actually, I would believe, still with Unilab.
Okay. The next one. What regulations are pharmacies subject to? Hello, sorry. No, it seems to be a missed question here. We'll skip that. Move on, please. Sorry, the question doesn't appear to be clear. Move on, move on. Well, that's the last question. We're very sorry. The last question appears to be not coming through clear. So that's our final question. I'd like to thank our speaker, so Richard Binos, who's already concluded. Should we go back so he can look at me? So thank you to Richard Binos of FDA. If you have questions to him, please kindly forward it. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Gigi Nievales from obviously GSK, and of course Ted Padilla, who's from the Pharma Association. Once again, thanks very much to everybody who's joined in from the UK. This is the British Chamber of the Philippines. We appreciate you interacting in our webinars. As we stated before, we will forward you all the presentations. And once again, and we have another forum in April. So may I wish you a very good day in the UK, and from the Philippines, we'll say good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Done. That was Mr. Bill.